Contribution from the Intel regular contributor, Siphamandla Goge. You'll know he's been in Glasgow these last few days. So he's reporting on this, the outcome of COP26. Well, after 14 days of talks and a few all-nighters, the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow has finally wrapped up. More than 100 countries have agreed to phase out the use of coal. Take a look at Siphamandla's conversation with South Africa's chief negotiator on the COP26 conference.
After a marathon meeting, finally the United Nations Climate Change Conference, known as COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, finally came to an end. This was a day later after the initial deadline of Friday. This talks to the issue of seriousness of discussions during one of the hotly contested topics, and that is the issue of phasing out coal. Right now we are joined by Maisela Kekane, South Africa's chief negotiator, who's been leading a delegation of negotiators together with the Minister of Environment, Fisheries and Forestry, Barbara Creecy. Sir, thank you very much for your time. Finally, there is something known as Glasgow Climate Pact, if I'm not mistaken. Talk to us about this deal. As South Africa, are you happy about the deal?
Yeah, well, from our point of view, we are satisfied with the outcome because remember we came here with three objectives. The first one being to secure financing for our own climate action, and the second one being to launch work on the global goal on adaptation, and the third one being around the issues of loss and damage. So on all those areas we managed to get largely what we wanted. For example, on the finance we managed to launch a new mobilization goal which would then conclude in 2025. There were pledges to the Adaptation Fund and the Least Development Country Funds. There were increased financing for the Global Environment Fund. So there was a set of package decisions around finance that we are quite happy with. And on adaptation, well, it was a hard battle. But in the end, I think the African continent prevailed. We finally managed to launch a work program on the global goal on adaptation, which is a major victory after 6 years of trying as the Africa Group of Negotiators and South Africa in particular. So we managed to succeed here in Glasgow. And of course, on the issues of loss and damages, we also made quite significant progress on establishing the Santiago network for loss and damages. And there are other set of key decisions that we managed to take. So we're quite happy.
Let's talk about the text and the way it's been written, you know, the way it's been drafted and presented, particularly on that very thorny issue of phasing out coal. The text now talks about phasing down coal. We understand that India, China and South Africa were very instrumental when it comes to that phasing of that text about phasing down, not phasing out. How is it going to work?
Well, you must remember that the UNFCCC works on a consensus basis, and within the convention itself there are principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and so forth. So the text that was put before us crossed some of those lines, which is why we then had to raise it. But we did not only, it was not the first time we are raising it in the plenary. We had been talking to the co-presidency for 3 days, but nothing changed. So we had no choice really as the basic countries but to stand up and reopen the discussion in the plenary. Lucky enough, we managed to convince our partners and come with the consensus text that talks about phasing down coal. That takes into account our national circumstances, that takes into account the issues of support and just transition and so forth and so forth. So the text that is there is in line with the principles of the convention itself. So that's exactly what we're doing.
For the first time here, we have seen the specific mention of coal in particular. For many years, it has always been a discussion, but there's been no specific mention of coal by name. But also, interestingly, the text talks about, phasing out fossil fuel subsidies.
Inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. That's what the text actually says. But even that is balanced with in the context of your national circumstance. But we're quite happy because remember the ultimate objective is to pursue a 1.5-degree goal. So once you want to achieve, it's a very difficult goal to achieve. So you really need to make concessions and move in the right direction. And one of the things that we also did in parallel to that is that we launched a work program on mitigation with an annual ministerial roundtable just to track progress in terms of how are we doing towards achieving that particular goal.